Hey folks, Papa Boris here, playing some more Through the Ages, or rather reviewing some more games from the 2025 Through the Ages World Championship Stage 2. This was the other four-player game. It finished a little bit after the one that we just reviewed yesterday, although it was running concurrently. This game is all about Peppe. He got kicked in the balls over and over in the first game, and in this game he was able to exact some revenge. Was it enough to win? Well, let's find out. By the way, this is going to be a long one. I'm going to do it in two parts. So let's commence. Spillis Willis, as the first player, chooses cultural heritage over the pyramids, which is one of the craziest things I've seen in Through the Ages. I don't want to make fun of Spillis Willis too much, but let's just leave it at this is very bad. Very, very bad. Very, very bad. Take the pyramids, guys. Actions are good. All right, that's enough of that. We go on to me. I'm obviously thrilled to see this because I get the pyramids as the second player, which with this board I should not have. And then what to take for the other one? Well, any of these are actually reasonable choices. As you know, I'm prejudiced against Homer. I don't like the inflexibility of how to replace him. You could definitely take a free rock here. It's totally fine. I decide to grab Alexander. I don't know if it's optimal or even good, but I like the Alexander Mine. I like popping him early on and then using the extra worker to build an early fourth mine and trying to get some of those sweet, sweet age 2 wonders. We got some good ones here. The University and Himeji are pretty much unconditionally good. And then the others, maybe. So anyway, I grab that and we move on. Now, Peppe seems to love Homer. He takes the Colosseum and Homer. Even though the Colosseum gives a happy face, he takes Homer for another happy face. So I guess this guy likes getting his happy faces. I would have taken Urban Growth because of my anti-Homer prejudice, but there's nothing wrong with this move. We move on to Nasty Michael. He grabs Boudica, who in the four-player game will often give you at least a couple of free science before she gets shut down. And then, of course, he's got one action left, so he takes a free rock, which was kindly left there for him. And the draft is over. We commence the game. Now, Spillis Willis gets a little bit of a tough first turn here because he has no wonder and no leader, and the first row sucks. Now, he takes the Colossus here for 2 actions, which I don't hate. It is a good wonder, and he's probably not going to get a wonder if he doesn't do this. The library is up here, but notice that Nasty Michael didn't get a wonder, and this is pretty much guaranteed to land in the 1-action area for him. It's like the best wonder in the game. So there's no way that Spillis Willis can count on this to wheel, and so, as much as it sucks, paying 2 actions for the Colossus makes sense. But I just have to say, man, if only there was some way that he could have avoided being in this position to begin with. Gosh, if only he could have, drafted a wonder in the drafting phase of the game instead of taking this rotting piece of wet trash. I don't know, I'm just brainstorming. Honestly, if it were me in this situation, I think I would have just given up on having a wonder. I would take and play Moses. I would build a mine, raise a population, and I mean, a consolation for having cultural heritage is that at least the turn 2 doldrums are cured for you because you can use that extra action to knock out this card. But he decides to grab the Colosseum and skip Moses. He just raises population and builds a mine, and then we move on. My turn is a pretty normal first turn. I play my leader, I build a mine, I raise population, I got an action left, and I take frugality. Now you might say, hang on a minute, Papa Boris, didn't you say you wanted to make a 4th mine with Alexander, so couldn't you get a rock here? That's true, but if I am going to make a 4th mine, I value food more than rocks. I'd rather get this food than this 1 rock and possibly be even more corrupt, which, to be fair, is what sometimes happens when you go for the early 4th mine. Also, if something wacky happens and I end up not going for the 4th mine, then at least this is a guaranteed food, whereas now this would become trash. So I end the turn, and it's over to Peppe. Peppe, in both games, got pretty lucky. He got the Engineering Genius A just handed to him, so that falls into his lap. He takes it, plays his leader. He grabs Rich Land, and he raises population. Now, in the first stage of this tournament, a player who had over 2,000 games made this exact mistake, and that player was good. He whooped me. He came second in our group by just a hair, and he whooped me in our games together. But this is a mistake, everybody. You are throwing away an action when you take this on turn 2, or for that matter, turn 1, instead of building a mine. Because this is worth a rock, but getting 1 mine a turn sooner also is worth a rock, since the mine is online for an extra turn. So both actions are worth a rock, except that, of course, if you do this, you then still have to make the mine. This is 2 actions, whereas making the mine and not taking this is 1 action. This is literally just throwing an action away. So I was very happy to see this because, again, based on his performance and his stats, Peppe is the strongest player in the group. But this is just throwing away an action, and I was happy to see him handicapping himself. So we're going to pass the turn here very happily and move on to Nasty Michael. Well, for him, the library falls into his lap, so he plays his leader, builds a mine, makes a worker, gets the library, completely normal first turn. He could have used urban growth to make a lab instead of a mine, but I think the mine is correct here because you want to get this wonder built. So it's very logical to prioritize the rock over the science, especially if your wonder is going to be giving you science. All right, it's over to Spillis Willis. He makes a lab. He grabs iron, which fell into his lap. He takes stockpile and he raises population. I have no problem with any of this other than the stockpile. Stockpile is 2 actions for 2 resources. It's just not that great. And instead of taking stockpile, he could have played out this cultural heritage. Notice that iron costs 5 science. And he's going to have 4 science on his next turn. If none of the Age A events give a science, which, okay, it's pretty likely if everybody's playing events, 1 science will go your way, but it's not necessarily going to happen, and if there isn't either of the 2 that give science or the one that lets you play an action with a discount, then he's going to be very happy to have played Cultural Heritage, to have 5 science, to play this and start upgrading his mines. That's a really early iron, and he didn't even have to pay extra actions for it. I think he missed an opportunity there. And it's over to me. Now, I pop Alexandra right away. This is, I know, highly debatable. It's questionable whether that's correct. It's just something I like to do. So I pop him right away. I cash out my frugality. I build a lab. I'm not going to build the mine just yet. Let's get the science online first. And what to do with these last 2 actions? Well, you could, take Code of Laws. That is a good technology. But I decided to grab the rich land to build my mine with, and then the breakthrough for 2 science. Maybe Code of Laws would have been correct. I just felt nervous taking a 6 science commitment when I'm only at 4. But that was something to consider. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention is Spillis Willis didn't actually get a leader. He passed on Hammurabi, who I believe was in the 2nd row during Spillis Willis's turn. So, or was he in the 1st row? I think he was in the 1st row. So yeah, I should have actually commented upon that. Spillis Willis should have definitely taken Hammurabi. Let me actually pause and rewind so I can show you this. Yeah, Hammurabi is right here. So what Spillis Willis should have actually done is taken and played Hammurabi, taken iron, built a lab, and played Cultural Heritage. He has 5 actions thanks to Hammurabi, and that's what he should have done. But he actually just, I think, completely missed that, and is now playing without a leader, which means not only that he loses the opportunity to spend a military action as a civil action once per turn, but then he has to pay another civil action when he actually puts his Age 1 leader into play because it's not replacing an existing leader. So I think that was actually a really, really huge mistake, even a bigger mistake than taking the stockpile. Okay, back to my turn. So I pop the leader, I make a lab, I grab rich land and breakthrough. Maybe I should have taken Code of Laws, and it's over to Peppe. So Peppe builds the first stage of the Colosseum. He builds that mine with rich land A. He grabs the knights because everyone loves knights, and he raises population. Now, I respect the raising of the population, but one thing I find a little strange is that he built a stage of the Colosseum instead of building a lab. Now, this does give him the option to more easily finish the wonder if he wants to play low science and not build the lab, but looking at the board, it's a really dry board. It's a bunch of garbage out here. I think there's a really good chance if you just build your lab here, collect an extra science, then you can just build the wonder next turn if that's what you want to do and spend your whole turn on it. I don't think there was a reason to rush the first stage, so I do think he threw away an action with rich land, and then he also threw away a science with his turn order, building a stage of the wonder rather than building a lab. All right, but Peppe passes the turn, and it's over to Nasty Michael. Nasty Michael plays the first event of the game. We all get a bunch of cards, so now we're more likely to play more events. He's not above taking Code of Laws, but he also has a wonder that gives him science and a leader that gives him science, so it's a little bit easier for him. He grabs the rich land, which is a bit speculative. He grabs urban growth, which is, I don't know what that is, and he raises population. Now, of this 4-turn sequence, I'm fine with the Code of Laws and the food, but I think these card grabs were a huge mistake. He had a really clean turn here. He could have played Urban Growth and spent 2 rocks to build his first lab, and then he could have spent the other rock to build the first stage of this wonder, which conveniently has a 1-rock first stage. Then he would have gotten an extra science, gotten a head start on his wonder, and not filled his hand with sort of trashy cards that are at the moment speculative. This one is actually an especially bad grab. You might say, Boris, come on, don't rag him for taking rich land. I mean, obviously he'll get irrigation or iron probably, right? But this urban growth, he already has an urban growth. So this isn't even 2 rocks. This is 1 rock. Because he can just use the existing urban growth to save a rock. He has to take this to save 2 rocks, but he's only saving an extra rock. That's 1 action for 1 rock. That is bad. It's bad to spend an action to get a rock if you have more productive things to do with your turn. So Nasty Michael starts slipping a little bit here and making some weird plays, and we go back over to Spillis Willis. So Spillis Willis plays an event, and this event ends up being extremely significant in the course of this opening, or mid-game, however you want to call it, that we get a free warrior. This event is often a trap. It is often correct to not do this because it is costing a worker, and you often do not want to spend a worker making a warrior. If you think about your token bank, right, you start with 2 tokens here and you start with 1 worker. 1 worker goes on mine, first worker from the token bank goes on lab, 3rd worker is unhappy. You often just do not have a worker to spare to put on a warrior. Even, if you'd like to. And if you are doing it, it means you're either not building your lab or not building a mine. So just take care with that. In this case, Spillis Willis does not use that free warrior, but he builds a temple, which is also strange. In the 3-player game, which are kind of early right now, that I've not finished, he's also doing this. It seems to be a thing that Spillis Willis likes to do. So a little bit of beginner through the ages talk here. An unhappy worker and a temple are kind of the same thing. The temple gives a culture, and it lets you dodge negative events based on unhappy faces. But otherwise, an unhappy worker and a temple are the same thing. You're just spending 3 rocks in an action to get 1 culture per turn, for the most part. Now, that's a lot of culture if we think about it, right? This is turn 4. How long do a 4-player game go? Typically 18, 19, 20 range is kind of anecdotally what I remember the games typically going till. So this is, 15 to 17 culture for 3 rocks and a worker. That's pretty good, right? Especially if you discount the fact that the worker was unhappy, it's just like 3 rocks in an action. That is good to get 17 culture for 3 rocks, but it's the early game. There's stuff to do with your rocks. You got a wonder to build. You got mines to upgrade. You could still do cultural heritage, research iron, upgrade mine, play out the stupid stockpile, and there you go. You got a beautiful, productive first turn. I think it's a mistake to build temples. Now, the reason I bring this up is that sometimes new players feel wrong about having unhappy faces, and so they just will always build temples to make their workers happy. But this isn't real life, okay? You don't need to make your people happy. You need to try to win the game, and building a super early temple is usually not the way to do that. Last thing I'm going to mention on this is that there is an Age A event, Development of Religion, which gives everybody a free temple. So if you've already built one, you've just wasted an action and 3 rocks. And so it's almost like the presence of this is like the game telling you, for the love of God, please don't build a temple. Okay. He plays the stockpile, he plays the cultural heritage, and he grabs another cultural heritage because I guess the man can't help himself, and he ends the turn. It is worth noting, if he had not taken stockpile and he had taken he had played the cultural heritage last turn, he would already have been able to research iron this turn and get, a step closer to having his mines upgraded. Alright, so on my turn, I play an event, we all get some rocks, and this is where I veer off track a little bit. So my original plan was Alexander, pop, get an extra worker, build a mine. I think that was still the best plan. What I could do here is I could rich land to build a free mine, pay 5 rocks to build the first 2 stages of the pyramids, and with my last action, raise population. Or if I'm feeling frisky, take a drama. In this game, we do have Bach, we do have Shakespeare, we do have Chaplin, we do have Fleming. So, the Papa Boris early drama grab is not a bad move. I think that's what I should have done. However, because of this extra warrior, I decide, can't pass that up, and I actually use it, and I think it's a mistake. I think it was a trap, and I should not have done it. I should have stuck to my plan. But instead, my extra Alexander worker becomes a warrior instead of becoming a mine, and what I decide to do instead is do Leo and printing press. Now, do you see the problem with this plan? I don't have workers to put on a printing press. If it was Leo and alchemy, that would have been one thing, but there's no alchemy here, it's printing press. So I need to now wait like 2 turns before I can actually get a worker to do this printing press with. And one of the rules of thumb and through the ages is that 1 turn is an eternity. Don't do things in age 1 that take multiple turns to get going. This is just, I mean, yes, it's cool to be getting some rocks with Leo, and it's cool to have a printing press and make some culture and a couple extra science, but it is just not worth it. So we'll see how this kind of derails me a bit. I think I actually made another mistake on this turn. So what do I do now with my remaining 2 actions? Well, I don't have a leader, so I'm going to obviously play Leo for one of them. Oh, I didn't? Why the hell? Oh, to avoid corruption. To avoid corruption, I raised population and built a stage of the pyramids. But the problem is that by raising population, I actually have consumption, and that's bad because now my food goes up to 2. If I waited a turn and hoarded rocks for a turn, like if I built 2 stages of the pyramid instead of raising my population, I still wouldn't have been corrupt because this only costs 2 food. So put the 2 food back, put a rock here, put a token here. I'm just barely not corrupt. I could have hoarded food for a turn, and then I would have been able to raise population twice, Leo, printing press, and make a printing press. So I guess that's too many actions if I'm not playing Leo. Okay, never mind. I'm wrong. I guess that's like another problem. I cannot hoard food. So that means I have to now wait an extra turn before I have the worker needed in order to actually have a printing press. Another point, by the way, is if I hoard food, I am unable to take advantage of the temple event if the temple event comes up. Now on Pepe's turn, he plays an event, and it's 2 free science, which we're all happy to see. He finishes the Colosseum, he grabs iron for 2 actions, and that's it. Now, if he had built a lab last turn, like I said, he wouldn't have been able to build the Colosseum this turn. He would have built the first 2 stages, and then he could have taken iron for the last 2 actions, and this Colosseum wouldn't have been built. But the Colosseum is not that important to rush. What do you get? Oh, you don't have your happy face? Big whoop. You got Homer. He's giving you a happy face. An extra military action? Okay, you draw an extra military card. What's worth more, 1 science or 1 military card? So I think you can kind of see the impact of that mistake. He got what he wanted by rushing the wonder to completion, but he's not getting more benefit from this at the moment than he would have from just having a lab. And in fact, he missed a science last turn for not having the lab, and because he's taking iron and finishing the wonder, he misses a science this turn. So he's already now paid 2 science to rush a wonder into construction. That isn't even doing anything for him. That would certainly be worth 2 science. In fact, it may have even been correct for him just to build a lab rather than building this wonder. All right, Nasty Michael's turn is up, plays an event, and it's this. So we do get a free temple as well as a free warrior. Now for Nasty Michael, I think it actually makes sense to use the free warrior. A little bit of mechanics here. So the warrior goes into play, and basically all the events resolve, and then you check to see if Boudica is one of the 2 weakest civilizations. So because that warrior gives Nasty Michael a strength, and that ties Nasty Michael for the lead, he is now not one of the 2 weakest civilizations, and thus he gets to use Boudica for a science, food, or a rock, and of course he chooses science. So it actually makes a lot of sense for him, because if he did not do that, he would have been at 1 strength, and he would have just gotten 2 rocks for building and upgrading military units. All right, he gets down Code of Laws thanks to Boudica's extra science and the science event. And now what to do with all of his actions? Well, I think there's a clear, correct decision here. It's build your wonder, right? Got 8 rocks, you're corrupt, build your wonder. Get a culture, get a science. You've got an extra action left after that. What do you do with it? Well, whatever you want to do. You can take Saladin, which I think is a thoroughly mediocre leader, but you can take him if you like him. You can take Bread and Circuses for happy faces later, though it doesn't make that much sense because you already have a temple, so it'd make more sense to go into religion. You can take a breakthrough for some science, though be careful, you're at your hand limit, and then you, well, no, you're not, because you got Code of Laws. Okay, so you want away from your hand limit, so, be careful taking cards. But yeah, all that's fine. Just build your wonder. However, Michael decides to take Saladin, replace Boudica, who's giving him science. He then takes iron. Okay, I mean, iron's a good technology, but now he's going to be corrupt. He has no way to avoid corruption, and he has nothing to do, so he takes breakthrough. And on the next turn, he's going to have 2 food, not enough to make a worker, and he's going to have 9 rocks. And so what's he going to have to end up doing with 9 rocks next turn? Build his damn wonder. So he might as well have built it now, gotten an extra science and an extra culture, though the science is more important. It actually gives him an extra hand size, which helps with this situation. And he basically will have a normal turn next turn, whereas this way, he's going to have to do next turn what he did this turn, and this turn what he did was Sorry, he's going to have to do next turn what he should have done this turn, and he's already stuck now with a turn that filled his hand with a bunch of trash. All right, Spillis Willis is up. He does not play an event. He finally researches iron. He upgrades a mine, builds a Stage of the Wonder, and grabs rich land. The one weird thing about this turn is why build a Stage of your Wonder when you could have just upgraded another mine? It doesn't make any sense to me. The Colossus, I mean, yes, it is a good wonder, and getting it done is important because, having the 2 strength, as we're about to get to these Age 1 events, could matter. Same for the colonization if people put colonies in there. So it does make sense to finish this wonder, but you could finish it next turn and upgrade the mine now. Actually, I guess... Oh, I see. No, if you upgrade the mine, you're going to be at 5 rocks. Oh, okay, I missed this in my preparations. Okay, maybe this makes sense. If you want to prioritize getting this wonder to dodge bad events, and that means that you're not upgrading your mines... Okay, fair enough. I actually retract that. That is a reasonable course of action. All right, it's my turn. I play Leo. I take advantage of the free temple. I grab the Code of Laws now because I actually have the science for it. I research it, and then I finish the pyramids, and I still have another action. And with this, I grab Theology for my happy faces. Urban Growth was a logical choice as well to help build a printing press I'm going to finally build next turn. But the Theology to make sure that I don't get screwed in happy faces later on is also reasonable, I think. Plus, it's a cheap tech to benefit from Leo's free rock every time you research a technology. Alright, so Peppe plays an event. We're in the Age 1 area. We got Development of Planning. I do want to take a moment to talk about these. Our options are 2 food, free action with a discount, or raise population. Of these, in my opinion, the best one is raise a population, because that is 3 food and a free action, whereas Development of Civil Life is a free action and just 1 resource. But on his turn, Peppe elects to use the Development of Civil Life to research iron. It's not making the difference between being or not being able to research it, and with his food being what it is and a full token bank here, I think the population would have actually been the right call, especially because we still need that second lab and we're stuck at 1 science. But okay, he researches iron, upgrades 2 of his mines, which by the way he still could have done. It's just then he would have had only 1 action now instead of 2. What does he do with his last 2 actions? Well, he grabs Alchemy, and he grabs Engineering Genius. A little bit speculative here. I personally would have been fine with just an Alchemy. If you are going to go this line, though, it's worth noting, why not take Urban Growth? This is 2 rocks. Engineering Genius is 3, but requires a wonder, which is speculative. I would have preferred the Urban Growth if I were to take this line to help me build my Alchemy next turn. That's all the more important, by the way, because Pepe's been on low science for a while, which is not necessarily bad. But if you do start with that type of approach, it makes sense to get your Alchemy online sooner rather than later. Actually, he can't even research Alchemy next time. Oh, that's interesting. Or did he not get the science yet? No, he's got only 3 science. Never mind, he can't get Alchemy, so the Urban Growth would have had to wait. But all the more reason Peppe should have built this damn lab earlier, even if that would have meant not having this warrior. All right, so Nasty Michael's up. He plays an event. It's free rocks for everybody. And he grabs Knights because everybody loves Knights. He builds the Wonder, finally. He's still wildly corrupt. What is he going to do? He's going to take Monarchy. Now, this is a tough situation because he is at a full hand size. With the library, he can go up to 7, which is actually taking advantage of right now. If it wasn't for the library, he couldn't take any cards at all. And this is why, this card grab that I criticized is really hurting him here. It's why it's bad to be speculative. Sometimes the cards sit in your hand, and sometimes the hand size really does matter. Now, the Monarchy, he's already got 6 actions. This is not urgent, and it's a lot of science, and he has very low science. Personally, I would have preferred either to take the Swordsman or to put the University under construction and try to have a way to use up these rocks. Now, that would have been a little tricky because he actually built the Wonder this turn. But notice, if he had built the Wonder the previous turn and had a full 6 actions to start this turn with, he could have actually taken the University under construction and I'm not 100% sure, but built enough of it to avoid corruption, while he waited for the science to charge up so he could actually research iron. Alright, so he loses rocks to corruption. Spillis Willis is up. He finishes the Colossus, so now he's ready to take advantage of any events or colonies that are in here based on strength. He grabs Joan of Arc, gets some more strength, some culture, military action. Also, the ability to see the event is really, really strong. In some cases, that lets you play aggressively when you're behind or avoid a trap when you're ahead. And for his last action after building a warrior, he raises population, which is totally fine. I would have perhaps preferred taking swordsmen, because I do think swordsmen are a very important technology, but I've noticed in the previous stage and in this stage, everybody likes knights and nobody likes swordsmen, and I don't understand why. Spillis has the fighting band, so now there's pressure on me and Peppe. We're gonna get in some trouble if we don't respect that. Luckily, everything kind of falls into my lap here. Himeji squeaks into the first card row, and I have 9 rocks, so I just take it and build it. Boom, problem solved. I've got enough strength to avoid any aggressions. I'm making an extra 2 culture per turn. Life is really good. I even have 2 actions left over. And what do? Well, I grab the swordsman, and I raise population. Now, it ends up being really significant that I didn't take this drama. I could have taken the drama. There was no rush to get another worker, but I know that these clowns put all sorts of trash into the event deck, and rats could very well be in here, so I thought, you know what, let's not dick around. Let's just raise population, get rid of the food in case there's rats, and, you know, drama llama, whatever. I'll deal with that, with not having drama if I need to. But it ends up being significant that I don't have this drama. So I pass the turn, and it's over to Peppe. Now, he's the last one here. He's the weakest link. Luckily for him, Jan von Shish Kebab is here to save the day. So he plays an event. We get some free food. He grabs Jan and plays him for 2 actions. Notice how it costs him 2 rather than 1 because of Homer. But he now does have a permanent happy face under the Colosseum. So Homer is perpetually being a bro. Now, the big question is, does Peppe have a fighting band? If he doesn't have a fighting band, he's still okay because he has 4 military actions, so aggressions won't go through. But he does have a fighting band that gives him 2 extra strength and 2 extra culture. Really huge to have or not have that card. Now, Peppe raises population, builds his next slab finally, about 3 turns too late, and he passes the turn. Nasty Michael McNasty, plays an event. We get culture. It's kind of a wash. He builds a lab using the urban growth in this worker that he finally has. He raises population, builds a 4th mine, grabs alchemy, and researches it. Now, one question I had is why use rich land to build a free mine when you could instead use 3 rocks to upgrade your lab and avoid corruption? Essentially, by making a mine, he threw away 2 rocks and a science. And that doesn't really make sense to me. I would rather have a science and 2 rocks than a mine. Especially because the 4th mine, it's pretty heavy on your workers. Age 1 is ending. These are about to go away. And if we don't oblige him by ending, or if we don't oblige him by keeping enough cards in the row that the age doesn't hit before his next turn, he's actually going to have a major crisis here. I think that the 4th mine is just a mistake in general, but it's like an even worse mistake here than usual when he had this other productive move he could have made that would have avoided corruption and let him save his worker. All right, so pass the turn. We go over to Bruce Willis. What's he going to do? Well, he's got some plans. First of all, he offers me this trade routes agreement, and I want you to keep track of who uses this agreement and when. I accepted, like, what are the odds I'm going to use a food as rock at some point? Probably nothing. I figure even if Spillis Willis gets a benefit out of it, he's playing a little wackadoodle, so I'm not super concerned about what he's going to accomplish, and maybe it'll give me something. I think that when it comes to these agreements, the mistake I make a lot of the time is I'm too cautious about accepting them. So I'm not saying just accept every agreement that comes your way, but, you know, consider if you should be a little bit more accepting. If I don't accept it here, he might offer it to someone else next turn, and then someone else will benefit from it, so I might as well be the one to get it. All right, so he raises population, grabs monarchy to fix his actions, and researches it. It does use up all his science, but, you know, it's not unreasonable because it does fix his actions, and actions are a big deal. Plus, there is an alchemy here, which in a couple of turns will help him get his science up. In fact, he has cultural heritage if he wants it, and he can start going after alchemy next time. The one move, of course, I don't like is this building of the temple. So what is that really accomplishing here? It's making this a happy face, but again, if he didn't do that, this would have just been a sad worker. So 3 rocks should have gone into this iron mine. All right, so it's my turn. I finally... like, age 1 is ending. Like, it felt like it was pretty early in age 1 that I undertook this plan. This is why you don't go for long-term plans. Finally, I research printing press, and I make a library. And yes, it's cool that Leo is now giving me an extra science, but what Leo is not giving me is culture. So I have a risk here of falling behind on culture with my opponents because I took a leader that didn't give me culture, and it took me forever to get that leader online. Now, I lucked out and got the Himeji Castle for 2 culture per turn. But if that hadn't happened, I would be really suffering here to keep up with the Joneses on the culture front because of my leader choice. All right, what else is there to do with 4 actions? Well, irrigation is right there. So after researching or raising a population, I grab the irrigation, research it, and use rich land to upgrade a farm. So I've got pretty decent food situation, and I also have a fighting band, which I can steal from whoever put it in there first. This is a move you should think about because by giving up 2 military actions, I'm not drawing cards, which means I might not be getting events to play, which means I might not be getting culture. But 1 strength actually does matter here because it means if Peppe and Nasty Michael play events on their turn and some kind of strength-based thing shows up, I'm actually beating them, whereas if I'm tied, they would beat me on ties. We go over to Peppe. He plays an event. It's immigration, which is really kind of funny because Spillis Willis hard built 2 temples, yet still does not benefit from this. It's Peppe with his free temple, Colosseum, and Homer. So he gets a free population increase, which is nice for him. He researches alchemy, fixes his science, raises population, and with his last action, builds his last mine. You can quibble about whether you should build the last mine or build your other lab. I think both are totally fine. And he passes the turn. By the way, notice this engineering genius that could have been an urban growth. Yeah, could have already used that here to upgrade that other lab and save some rocks, making up for this corruption that he's experiencing. Oh, he's not corrupt. Sorry, this is not corruption. But he can use that now in the other lab and just save himself 2 rocks. All right, Nasty Michael's up. He plays an event, and it's developed territory. Spillis Willis wins it for a song, a single warrior, a defense card, and the 1 colonization bonus. And I want to point out, Michael's super lucky here that we didn't trigger H2, because otherwise these would have disappeared. He would have been stuck with 3 food and a revolt. It would have been a horrible situation. But as it is, he's able to dig his way out of it. He upgrades his lab, finally using that urban growth A, upgrades a mine, upgrades another mine, and he grabs frugality. It's okay, by the way, not to raise population here because you can raise it and then get a food. Or you can let H2 trigger, lose these 2 tokens, but he's making a food now and then you use all 4 food. So you're basically down a food, but that food would just have been sitting there wasting 1 of your blue tokens and causing more corruption, which is an important thing to consider when you have 4 mines instead of the usual 3. So I think this is a pretty reasonable turn. I don't quite understand the frugality move because he's not going to want to use this. He's not going to want 2 food to sit here and be giving him nothing. I would have preferred either reserves or... yeah, I think it's just the reserves. It kind of sucks. There's nothing really great here. I would have just taken the reserves because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to research any of these. Maybe cartography if you put colonies in there or think your opponents did. Bread and circuses doesn't make too much sense because you already have a temple, so you prefer to go into religion to fix your happy faces. Masonry, I'd like to have more science in order to indulge in that kind of a luxury. He also copies a fighting band, so he's doing the same thing I'm doing. But then he chooses an extra action instead of 2 strength from Saladin, which is bold. It means he goes from being tied for first to being last no matter what. And he passes the turn. So we trigger H2, and let's take a look at how this age starts out. It's a wash. I mean, it's a really even game. And I just want to point this out, how much can change in an age. Remember this, and then think about what age 2 is like. H3 is like when H2 is over, because the start of H3, everything is different. Here, we all have about the same culture, make about the same culture, have about the same science. Okay, Spillis is a bit behind on science. I am behind on rocks. Food, we're all kind of the same. Very, very, very even game. I mean, I think literally anybody could win it from here. But let's take a look at what happens in H2. So Spillis Willis comes up, he plays an event, it's some free science for everybody. Hooray, hooray. He grabs irrigation, researches alchemy, upgrades a lab, upgrades another lab. He could also now upgrade another mine with rich land, but he chooses to instead use those 2 rocks to make another warrior, which makes sense. He then now gets to stay strong, and he researches irrigation for the future. I should mention, by the way, that building a temple, okay, I criticize this. He does have Joan. To be fair, he does have Joan, who does give strength from temples. So that is a consideration. I still think it would have been better to spend 3 rocks to upgrade mine. But with Joan, the second temple is not quite as crazy of a play as the first one was. So it's my turn. I am second. but I don't have any events to play. I threw away some trash thing because I'm unlike my opponents. I'm not a clown who puts radioactive dumpster fires into the military deck. What is there to do with my heaping gobs of actions? Well, I research theology and I upgrade that temple to fix my happy faces because I am concerned that these clowns put something in there about the happy faces. So let's just make sure that's not an issue. I also get a rock. No, I don't, because did I already have that researched? I researched it just now, right? Yes, I researched it just now. So I spend 2 science, I get a rock. Pretty good exchange. What else to do? Well, we have some productive things to do here. I upgrade my farm, so now I'm making some food. I can get these workers out before H2 is over. And I've even got science left over to research swordsmen. And I get a rock for that, so I can upgrade some swordsmen. In fact, I choose to upgrade both of them. It does mean that I'm still losing ties to Spillis Willis, but Peppe and Michael have to work pretty hard to not just outright lose to me on strength-based events. Now, I still got 2 actions left, and with that, I think if there's ever a time to go for masonry, this is it. My science is good. I get a rock for playing it. My mines are weak, so saving a rock on buildings is actually pretty good, and I'm kind of forced into it. There's just really nothing else for me here. So I take that and I take patriotism. There's just nothing else for me to do. I literally can't take swords or Genghis, and bread and circuses when I already have the temple makes no sense. So I'm kind of forced into it. I love it though. Masonry is like one of my favorite underrated technologies. Like, it's not really underrated. It's not really that good, but when I'm like forced into taking it or have a good chance to take it, I'm very happy. It's just like a little workhorse of a tech. All right, Pepe is up. He plays an event. We got Rebellion, so I'm really glad I fixed my happy faces. Otherwise, I would have lost 2 actions. Nasty Michael. He's the whipping boy of this game, and the whipping starts here. He loses 2 actions because he has an unhappy worker. And now Pepe's turn is really instructive. Watch what he does with his 4 actions. He researches knights. He makes 2 knights. And then he plays phalanx. And he actually has 2 phalanxes because there's one from the 2 warriors and the knight, and then there's another from the 2 farmers and the knight, thanks to Jan von Shish Kebab. With Jan, you got to be really thoughtful about your tactics. There are some creative things you can do. For example, medieval army with 2 knights and no warriors is actually 2 medieval armies. 1 farm, 1 knight, 1 farm, 1 knight. And here's another interesting configuration. 2 farms, 2 warriors, and 2 knights, and you get a ton of strength. So now he's staring down the barrel of the gun at us. Notice that Colosseum is very important with this extra military action, letting him draw a card and potentially get something really good. So the rest of us do have to respect this gargantuan strength difference he has, and he's not really sacrificing anything for it. He still has science, rocks, his happy faces are fine, and he's making good culture. So it's a really strong position here. Only thing he's missing is actions and food. And he puts the Great Wall under construction. I really thought about this a lot as I was preparing this video. It's a tough call. I do underrate perhaps the Great Wall. I tend to avoid this wonder, especially when I only have 4 actions and it costs me an entire literal turn to build it for 2 strength, a culture, and a happy face. I wouldn't have done this. I think the problem here is what else do? You could take Machu Picchu, I suppose, but that's also a lot of rocks to build, and we're also getting underway into H2, so taking that slot, is a little bit tough. I think I'd still prefer that over the Great Wall, just because it gives me back some of the rocks I spent on it, helps avoid corruption, and also increases my food production, which would otherwise be 0. You can also consider something like swordsman, because I like swordsman, and like a constitutional monarchy, to maybe research that in the future. It's a bit far away, but it will be good later. It's a tough turn. I don't hate this. I wouldn't do it. He passes the turn here, and we're over to Nasty Michael. What are you going to do about the fact that you've got a 9 strength difference between Pepe the Great over here? Well, he plays the frugality and leaves himself with 2 food that are doing nothing other than causing him corruption. A very strange line. He grabs the swords that Pepe left for him, researches them, upgrades them, and then he grabs warfare. And I would have to guess he didn't want to take warfare. When you're only making 4 science to turn in H2, you don't really want to be researching warfare, especially if you might have had thoughts of doing knights and monarchy with your science production. It's kind of asking a lot. He might have rather upgraded a mine or upgraded a lab, but he's trying to, make a concession and respect the fact that Pepe's got 12 freaking strength here. So he needs to shape up, and he decides to pay the price and grab warfare. He also, of course, uses the Saladin for 2 strength instead of an extra action, which he, I am guessing, was unhappy about as well. All right, Spillis Willis grabs the Organized Religion. It helps fix his happy faces, and in the interim, it also helps, because it gives strength, with Joan. So he actually does it right now, and I don't think he wanted to. I wouldn't have wanted to. He had 4 rocks. With 4 rocks, he could upgrade a mine, paying 3, and upgrade another mine with rich land, paying 2. He could have upgraded both of his mines here. But because he spends 4 rocks upgrading the temple, now he can upgrade no mines. So that was a huge 4 rocks. And that was also, not to mention, 4 actions. 2 to take, 1 to research, 1 to build. But he's doing it because if you stay at 7, it's a little bit hairy. Now, would a 12 strength in age 2 really aggress on someone with 7? With 4 military actions, a single age 1 military card is enough to do 5. So maybe this was too high of a price. Maybe Spillis Willis should have just upgraded his mines, finished his production, and grabbed cannon, for example, to get started on that, because right now he has no military technologies, and we all know how that's going to end. So it's something to consider on this one, though I'm not 100% confident. His last action, he just raises population, very normal here, and he passes the turn. Okay, on my turn, I grab cannon, which I'm not, that thrilled about. It's one of those things where, I think it is the correct thing to do in general, but in this particular case, it's extra important to do something about this strength difference, because unlike Spillis, I only have 2 military actions. Even with 2 defense cards, I can't block an aggression, and I know that Peppe knows that. So I take the cannon, I research it, Leo gives me an extra rock, which is exactly what I need to make the cannon, although I have patriotism, so I just play patriotism. But still, the extra rock is nice. We get a cannon. This is not how I wanted to spend 4 of my 6 actions this turn, but what are you going to do? And then what do you do with the rest of your 2 actions here? Well, one thing I decide here is to pass on the constitutional monarchy, which may be a mistake, but I figure, I can be a despot if I need to. 6 actions is fine. Let's focus on other things. I raise population, and I grab opera. So the idea is that with opera, if Bach comes along, I have a way to generate culture going into the end game. If I had had drama from age 1, I wouldn't have had to do this. Drama is a much cheaper technology. It costs only 3 science to research and 4 rocks to build. Okay, 3 with masonry, versus opera, which is 7 science and 8 rocks, or 7 if I get masonry. So it's a hefty price. It's, 4 extra science and 4 extra rocks for 1 more culture. Bach gets an extra culture per theater. He just wants the cheapest theater available. So here I was really kicking myself for not having gotten that drama. If I had the drama, maybe I would have taken the constitutional monarchy just in case I could research it at some point, or the reserves. But here I felt the pressure. It's a really close game. If I'm going to get ahead, especially if I'm not playing events, and now that events are worth 2 points, people who are playing them are kind of getting extra culture against me. I want to make sure I have the ability to turn resources into culture. So I pass the turn. All right, Pepe's up. He plays an event. Makes sense as a strength leader. We got a Dark Ages. It's a bit tame. 1 science can definitely matter, but still, it's a pretty tame event as far as Dark Ages go. He grabs the Rifleman, very smart because he didn't have Swordsman. He upgrades a lab, and he builds a Stage of the Wonder. It's very instructive here. He's ignoring all kinds of temptations like the Kanmon for his despotism, the Engineering Genius, Justice System, some pretty sexy cards here. It's very deliberate here. He's got the rifles, he's building the Wonder, and that's setting the stage for what he's going to do later. So pretty neat turn, though it's not obvious the power of this turn at first glance. Nasty Michael does take the Kanmon, which is a bit weird because he already has the monarchy, but I guess he's figuring he's just going to dump it and play the Kanmon instead if he can, which, okay. He researches warfare as a concession to the fact that he's behind on Peppe. He upgrades his other lab, upgrades another mine, and upgrades a 4th mine. I think you know what I'm going to say here. He should have taken cannon. If cannon falls into your lap, you got to take cannon. Otherwise, you're just asking for trouble in this game. But he doesn't do that. He passes the turn and it's over to Spillis. Now, Spillis plays an event. Nasty Michael loses a population. He would have needed 2 more strength to avoid that. Though if he had 2 more strength, Spillis Willis would have seen this event and would have probably not played an event into this. And this is really rough for Nasty Michael because he doesn't have an idle worker that he can spare. This one will go back into this part of the pool, and then he's in revolt. So he's in some trouble, and some things start happening to him that make what happened to Peppe in the last game look like a lavender massage. It is going to get bad for Nasty Michael, and this is where it really starts. He loses that worker. All right, so Spillis Willis, what's he up to? He plays rich land to upgrade one of his farms. He upgrades the other farm, so he's done upgrading his farms. He's getting his food going, totally fine. He grabs the cannon because his mother raised him right, and he grabs the urban growth. Now that is logical because he's probably going to want to upgrade the other temple, so this is not speculative, it makes sense. Then he grabs the engineering genius. That's a bit speculative. His rocks are a little behind here because he never upgraded them. He built temples instead. 4 rocks, you're really going to build those 9 rock, 10 rock, 11 rock, 13 rock, age 2 wonders? Actually, 9 rock is age 1. Age 2, yeah, age 2, we're talking 11. We're talking 11, 12, 13, right? There ain't no 9 rock age 2 wonders. Yeah, this is all 11, 12, 13 type of stuff. You're really gonna do that? Even with the help of 4 rocks here, it's skeptical. It's speculative. I would have rather, for the last action, just got this cultural heritage out of the hand because the 2 science is pretty significant, and if you let it go too long, you might end up not having the opportunity to play it, and then you're gonna miss out on that science. His turn ends, my turn begins, I play an event, it's free science, and I admit I get very lucky here, folks. If this had been 2 cards later, my turn would have been a little bit uncomfortable just because there's not that much for me to do here. It's sort of a dry board. But with the 4 free science, I'm able to take coal, research it. If I had 4 fewer science, I could not do that. I get a rock from Leo, which puts me up to exactly 6, which is just enough to start upgrading my coal mines. So I spend 4 actions of a very dry turn to do something extremely productive, which is fix my rocks. For the last 2 actions, I take the rifles, which may seem a little bit conservative, but, Pepe's popping off over here. There's nothing much else to do. Yeah, I could take patriotism, but these techs are hard. I've already got a big tech I'm planning to research. There are other good things down the line, like a government or strategy that I might want, and 4 science is starting to kind of not be enough, especially because it's only 3 without Leo, and Leo's going to be going away soon. Okay, not soon necessarily, but if I want to replace him, he's going to be going away, and he's not around forever. So I take this. I figure the fact that it costs 2 actions doesn't really actually matter that much because there wasn't much for me to do with an extra action. And, it's one of those things where it means if shit hits the fan in age 3, I'm able to make a wider variety of tactics. All right, so Pepe's up. He plays an event. It's foray, so he and I get free rocks, which is great, or food if you want food. He actually could use food to then raise his population. It's nice that I'm at 10. If I was at 9, Spillless Wolves would have taken the benefit because he would have beaten me on tie breaks. Pepe does choose 3 rocks, which is interesting. He is getting selective breeding here, but it was worth considering taking 3 food and raising population. I mean, he is able to finish the wonder without the rocks. If he had 12, he could still finish it, especially because he has the engineering genius still, but he wants as many rocks as he possibly can get. He grabs a selective breeding to fix his food. That landed right in his lap, which is very nice for him. And then he finishes the wonder. Very principled move. Don't delay, get it done. He's getting some extra culture. He's got even more strength now. And we turn our attention to the red-headed whipping boy of this game, Nasty Michael. Okay, so let's pause for a moment to appreciate the hell that Nasty Michael finds himself in. He needs to lose a worker because of Reign of Terror. So now he is in revolt. How is he going to fix the revolt? Well, in my opinion, as much as it sucks, I think the way that you fix your revolt is that you blow up one of your farms, you research selective breeding, and then you upgrade it. I think, that's just what you got to do. The alternative is to blow up one of your mines. Now that hurts, but if you blow up one of your mines, you can still research and upgrade selective breeding, and then you're actually making food. With just a selective breeding at this stage, you're actually not making anything. Oh, no. Okay. No, you are. What am I talking about? Hold on. Sorry. There we go. Let's move that text box. You research selective breeding. You upgrade selective breeding. You had a farm blown up. So that's a worker who's sitting, I guess, right here, being unhappy. Selective breeding makes 3. Consumption is 2. In 2 turns, you can make another worker, maybe make another farm, maybe crawl out of the hole. I think that's what I would have done. I would have blown up a farm, for counter actions, blow up farm, take selective, research selective, upgrade selective twice. It hurts. It's your entire turn. You passed on cannon. Or sorry, not upgrade twice. Upgrade once. Right. 1, take research, upgrade. That's 3. Blow up farm. That is 4. And then you have 1 action left, and you take cannon for the future. Now, Nasty Michael makes what I think is a mistake in responding to this very stressful situation. He takes navigation and researches it. Now, I'm guessing that's because just he wants the 2 extra strength against Peppe. And I'm not saying it can't make a difference, but I think this situation over here with the revolt is pressing enough that he just needs to roll the dice and YOLO it and hope that Peppe either doesn't draw the right cards to aggress on him or chooses a different opponent, despite the fact that Lord Michael is the weakest. So I do think it's a mistake to go down this path, because now he's 1 science short of being able to get selective breeding, so he blows up the farm, but he has neither the actions nor the science to research selective breeding and upgrade a farmer, which means he actually loses a food, and that means it's going to take him now an extra turn to get the food that he needs to make another worker after he has his solo selective breeding upgraded. It's actually more than that, because he is missing 2 food from not upgrading selective breeding, and then he's missing a 3rd from the consumption that he's facing here. He grabs frugality, which is very, very odd, because he's not going to be raising his population anytime soon with this line. I would have definitely taken cannon. If reserves had been here, I would have taken that so I could take reserves for food, but the frugality to me makes no sense. It was a tough situation for him, but he also didn't make the best of it. You know, it's like you're getting kicked in the balls. The last thing you want to do is lean in. And that's kind of what Lord Michael did here. So he passes the turn. We're back over to Spillis. He grabs the constitutional monarchy and researches it, and I think that's a big mistake. He had 12 science. He used it all to get 1 extra action of each type. I think there's other things to do here. And I think spending all your science like that is a little bit aggressive. He also decides he wants to get scientific method, and it's one of those things where, like, doing scientific method on top of alchemy is technically inefficient, but on the other hand, what it is giving you is science, and a lot of what you're paying for it is science. So that's like the one case where you're kind of making up some of the inefficiency, and plus with 4 science, I mean, that's not enough. That's not enough to take it to the end game. So, you know, taking it, researching it, and upgrading it twice, if you want to do that, I'm not going to hate you for it. But if you spend the constitutional monarchy science, 12 science is gone. Now you gotta wait extra long to do this. Okay, not true. You have the cultural heritage, so you could do it next turn, but you can't do it this turn. It's delaying you getting your science. It's got like this knock-on effect where spending all the science now hurts more than just the fact that you're losing 12 science. It's also inhibiting your future science production. He also plays the cultural heritage and upgrades a mine. It's a little strange. He spent all this time delaying playing cultural heritage, but why now? Why not just upgrade your other mine? And then wait another turn on the cultural heritage. It's not doing anything. You might as well do it next turn and get the extra rock from having your mine online sooner. He builds a warrior. Okay, that's why he didn't want to upgrade his mine, because he wanted the rocks for the warrior. Now he's tied with me and Nasty Michael, so he can win some ties the further down the road we go. I get that. That does kind of make sense, but I still think upgrading the mine would have been more important. All right, so we pass the turn, it's to me, and I play an event while I'm in 2nd place. Unfortunately, it is not a good event to be 2nd place, and it's just a stupid colony, and thanks to his newly minted navigation, Nasty Michael wins it. So he pays 1 of his swords, and he gets 6 culture and a happy face. Now, if you take a look at what that means, right? So now he's got this happy face. It means he can pull this worker out of here and he will no longer be in revolt. It also means that that sword went into the bank, so now his consumption is lowered as well. So this selective breeding can actually get to work, and now he can in fact pump out 2 food, because when you go up to 3 with only 1 consumption, you're netting 2 plus the 1 that's there, that's 3, and then he could use the frugality. Maybe that was his plan all along. Maybe he's the one who played the historic territory, and maybe he was just really planning to win it with this navigation. That would make his last turn make a little bit more sense. All right, me, I'm just getting to work here, upgrading my mine so I can make more rocks, and here's Buck. He fell into my lap. He's right there in the card row. So I research masonry to get another rock because I feel like I've got the science for it, and that'll help me make operas. You could argue this is a mistake because 3 science is still 3 science, but I use those 3 rocks to make another temple. The idea is it's giving me culture, it's avoiding if there's the other unhappiness event in here, and later I can upgrade this temple into an opera perhaps, so it's not a totally lost use of resources. These 3 rocks are like a down payment on an opera. I raise population, I grab Bach, and then I grab urban growth to help build my operas, so I'm trying to get ready to get some culture going and take over this game in the 3rd age. Peppe plays an event, it's border conflict, so he gets 3 more rocks. Nasty Michael has to lose an urban building farmer mine. He grabs Napoleon and plays him. And to be honest, I wouldn't have done this. Napoleon is a decent leader because he provides strength and an extra military action, and that's cool and all, but he's an age 2 leader that does not give points. And if you don't get points from your age 2 leader and you're behind on points in age 2, then you can start to run into some problems just getting enough culture to win. But Peppe does this move that I would never have done, and he actually makes it work. So I got to give him credit for here. That's a tough move to make. It's a move I would have absolutely missed, and we're going to see that it really does pay off for him. So he plays the Napoleon. With his remaining actions, he researches selective breeding, grabs the Republic to fix his actions. In fact, he gets that right now. And then he has the rocks to upgrade both farms. So Peppe is in really good shape. He grabs the medieval army from his hand, which he wisely saved from age 1, to transition out of the phalanx after Jan von Shish-Kebab disappears. So he's now got 2 medieval armies. He's got 16 strength with Napoleon. He grabs the efficient upgrade, which is, okay, not doing anything, but there was nothing else for him to do. And then he passes the turn. If we look at what's going on here, Peppe got good rocks. Food is great. Science is about the same as everybody else's, though he does have less of it at the moment, which is not to be discounted. Well, actually, he's producing right now. So, okay, he has, if we take a look at it now, he's got about the same as everyone except for Nasty Michael, but Nasty Michael's got a lot of problems. He's got good rocks, good food. Science is fine, but culture. He's starting to slip behind Spillis and slip behind me. So if he's not careful with this Napoleon play, he is going to have issues in H3 and is going to have to rely on Napoleon in order to win the game. Or more broadly, military to win the game. So Nasty Michael's up, and he needs to lose something here. And what he chooses to lose after playing his own event in which nothing happens is this farm. He loses the farm, which kind of makes sense. It is the cheapest thing he has. Now, at this point, what he needs to do is research selective breeding and build a selective breeding so that he has 3 food next turn to make a population with. He takes Robespierre. He develops knights for 5 science. He makes 2 knights. And he puts down Conquistadors, the crappiest H2 tactic, but at the moment it's giving him 16 rocks, or 16 strength, so now he's out of the woods. He's fine. He's not got to worry about Peppe. I still think that was a mistake. Yes, it sucks if you're at 7 strength or whatever he was, and Napoleon declares war on you, but you cannot play without farms. You can't play without farms. You need farms, man. He needed to research selective breeding and build a selective breeding, in my opinion, and just take his chances. This stops the probability or the possibility of something bad happening on the military front while guaranteeing things are horrible on the domestic front. At least there was a chance, that nothing bad would have happened if he had researched selective breeding instead of this, in which there's a guarantee of something bad happening. But he decides to take this line and then grab coal. Now, this move may look insane. He spent 3 actions to take the coal. Why the hell would you do that? Well, it kind of makes sense. What is he going to do with these actions? He's got a hand limit of 5. And he can only take 1 more card, thanks to the library. So this takes all of his actions to take the card, but that's a psychological thing. If you're only able to take 1 card and he can't get any of these out of his hand, he could take this out of his hand, but he doesn't want to lose the 2 strength from the leader. So if he doesn't want to replace Robespierre, he can only take 1 card, so it doesn't matter if he pays 3 actions for it or 1. So it's not as crazy as it looks. That being said, he just doesn't need coal. His science production is good. It's the best of anybody's, but still, it's more than a turn's worth of science production to research coal. He doesn't need it. 8 rocks per turn is fine. You can go to the end of the game with that. So if he was to take 1 card, it would make sense to take, journalism, so he has a way of generating culture before that becomes a problem. Or maybe just take your chances, play Robespierre, lose the 2 strength, you're still at 14, it's still fine. Then you can take 2 cards. You could take Republican wave of nationalism, because Republic is cheaper to revolt to than the constitutional monarchy is, and since you have warfare, it doesn't matter as much that Republic only has 2 military actions. So there's definitely better things to do with those actions than to take the coal. But that's what he decides. He also loses the 2 strength from Saladin to get an action instead, and it's over to Spillis Willis. So we have this, which luckily does nothing because I have no colonies. He researches scientific method, puts the Statue of Liberty under construction for a lot of actions, and builds the first stage. And I actually agree with the Statue of Liberty grab. It's really aggressive, but it's smart, because one thing that often happens if you have irrigation is your food is great, but then once you get out of this section of the token bank, it just dries up. And we are going to lose 2 of these workers pretty soon here when H3 flips over. So it's kind of a problem, and Statue of Liberty is a great solution to it because it gives 3 yellow tokens, and also in this case 2 culture, because he did waste all of his science on constitutional monarchy. So being able to do that is very helpful. I do wonder though why he built a stage. Oh, it was maybe to avoid corruption. What is this? It's a 5 rocks on the first stage. I don't know. We could go back and look to see if like he would have avoided corruption by upgrading this lab. If not, then yes, it makes sense to build this stage to avoid corruption. But if that would have avoided corruption, it would have made more sense to go here and get a science. So my apologies for not looking at that closely enough before doing this turn. Anyway, it's a minor point. We move on and it's to me. I play an event. It's this, which ends up being very significant. And what I do with it is I pay a rock, or I pay no rocks, to turn one of my labs into a library. So I'm still getting a science for it, but I'm now also getting a culture. It's a pretty minor thing, but it is increasing my culture, and I decide to go for the Eiffel Tower. So my thinking here is, after putting Eiffel Tower under construction, I still have 2 actions. I research the rifles, get a rock, upgrade a swords to a rifle to beat Spillus Willis on ties, and now 6 + 7 is 13. I have just enough rocks to build the Eiffel Tower next turn. So I'm trying to pump up my culture, get Bach, get Opera, and then just run away with it in H3. I grab Wave of Nationalism, so I have more rocks to make military units with, and I pass the turn. All right, on his turn, Peppe grabs Strategy for 2, which is very sensible. He raises his population, builds a 3rd lab because science is important. He grabs this to fix his happy faces later. It's a little bit questionable because he doesn't need it yet, but we are about to lose these 2, so later on this will be helpful. And then he researches the rifles, which is very important. He's doing this, I believe, with a purpose. I think there's a very significant reason why he does this now, and then he upgrades one of his rifles. So he passes the turn, and we're over to Michael. Michael researches selective breeding a turn too late, in my opinion. He upgrades an Age A farm to an Age 2 farm. Now, how did he do that when he had no farms last turn? Well, he used freedom of movement to turn iron into a bronze farm. So that's a 5 rock thing going down to a 2 rock thing, but now he is able to upgrade that to a selective breeding and finally get 2 food, though he has no food because he lost food because he didn't have a farm for a turn, so he still can't actually make new workers, and the age is about to end, so this is not going to be here pretty soon. In addition, he puts down Robespierre, which I think he should have done last time, especially since he was willing to lose the 2 strength from Saladin anyways. He grabs the scientific method to improve his science at some point, and he grabs a breakthrough. These are questionable card grabs, you could argue, but on the other hand, there's not much for him to take here, so he passes the turn. All right, it's down to the final turn of Age 3. I'm going to pause for just a second, or Age 2. I'm going to pause for just a second. All right, so Spillus Willis finishes the Statue of Liberty. Very principled, don't dilly-dally with these wonders. He's now got the opportunity actually to take some workers out of this bank, saving some more food. He grabs Catherine, which looks a little weird because Catherine needs to be the strongest in order to do her thing. But one thing to keep in mind, this leader's solid, even if you're never going to get that political ability. 2 culture and a military action, totally fine. So he puts her in. He's very far behind now. He grabs the cavalryman for 3 actions from here, and then ends the turn. That's a little bit weird. I get that, you want the cavalryman because your military technologies are currently non-existent, but at the same time, you can get workers out of here while it's cheap. And, I mean, taking this isn't gonna, save you. You're probably okay waiting on it. Now, maybe he thought, okay, well, Boristina's gonna want the cavalry. And then Peppe might take it just to be a dick, and Nasty Michael might take it to be a dick. Let's not mess around. Let's spend the 3 actions and make sure I get this technology, which honestly is not that unreasonable. Personally, if I'm ending a turn at 6, I'm just going to try to do whatever I can to make my civilization better and just hope for the best. So the turn ends, and we go over to me. I play an event. It's a strategic territory which Peppe wins. It's kind of heartbreaking, actually, because he has to sacrifice a worker for it, but he has 3 defense cards, which Nasty Michael must have been very upset about. And he actually doesn't lose any strength, because the strength that he loses from the, the warrior with a strength of 1, and the loss of the tactic with a strength of 2 is made up for by the colony, which has a strength of 4. All right, I grab the cavalryman for 2 actions because I do want to have all 3 military techs. Then, we're not going to dick around. We build the Eiffel Tower. I play Bach to start getting culture because Leo's about to leave. Now, you might have noticed I could have kept Leo and I would have gotten 1 more science for doing so, but I would rather have 1 action next turn than 1 science. 1 action is more valuable to me than a science, and I want to play Bach now when he's replacing Leo. If I wait for Leo to drop out, then next turn, Bach has to go into an empty spot, and that takes an action. I play Wave of Nationalism for 4 rocks. It's good enough for me to make a cannon with the 4 rocks and 1 food using the trade routes agreement. Did you forget about the trade routes agreement? Did you forget? I don't think Spillis Willis ever used it. I definitely never used it, but here it is, the last turn of H2 right before it disappears. That is clutch. It's a really big deal because it lets me make a cannon, get a flat 3 strength, catch up to Nasty Michael, and avoid any unpleasantness. Now, I could have stayed at 11, let Peppe aggress me, and have the 2 defense cards. I could have done that. I could have been like, at 11, he's going to target Spillis, because he's going to want the aggression to go through. It's possible, but I didn't want to dick around, so I cashed out the food. There is a price for this. Because I use that food here, I'm not able now to make a worker here, which costs 4 food, and I'm 1 short, and this worker is about to disappear. So there is a price to be paid, but I did the baller thing. I used the trade routes agreement to take a food as a rock and make a cannon with it. For my last action, I grabbed the reserves, and that is where we are going to end this video, because you might notice we have 3 cards going away. There are 3 cards left in the deck. Age 3 is going to trigger when it's Pepe's turn, and we're gonna have a wild freaking ride ahead of us. This is not like the other game that we just did, Age 3, which was a pile of nothing. This one I agonized over every single turn, and there's gonna be a lot to dig into, and this video is already over an hour long. So we're gonna pause here. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like and or subscribe. And I'm going to post the second part on the same day, so you can watch it now. It should be already all uploaded or later at a time of your convenience. I'll see you again real soon.